Hello, Serious Survivor here, and today we're going to look at the second part of a 2-video set. And this set of videos was to introduce some tactics and techniques and things we have to take into account as we may be bugging out from a unfamiliar location with people that we don't know or unexpectedly have had to group with. And when we have to team up with people that we may have never met before, people who do not have a plan, people who do not have a bug out location to go to, then it's going to be like beginning from scratch with this new group. The first video discussed forming a plan, talking about the personnel, and some other various aspects that we have to take into account. But this video is going to focus on problems, issues, and things we face along the way while making this journey. Sometimes the journey is not going to be as simple as just leaving our location and making it to where we want to go. There are a multitude of problems that we could encounter along the way, and here we're going to look at some of them and look at some of the warning signs and things that we must take into consideration. In the sniper combat video that will be coming out as soon as I can get it out, then we're going to discuss these tactics in great detail, looking at all of the different aspects of combat and stealth tactics. But for this video, we're going to look at the general concepts and things that we definitely have to take into account as we're traveling through a post-apocalyptic environment. So let's get started. One thing to take into account when traveling a roadway, this makes excellent opportunities for ambushes, tricks, and traps. Also keep in mind that once crowded areas that have now been abandoned will most likely provide multiple avenues of cover and concealment for an enemy. Deserted vehicles, structures, things similar to that. This means that highways that still have hundreds or thousands of abandoned vehicles will allow for some excellent scavenging opportunities, but will also be the perfect places for an enemy to set up an ambush. One trick that could be used by an enemy would be to place gear, supplies, or anything that could be considered valuable, to place these items in a noticeable location or in an area that they just stand out, that a survivor pretty much has to see these items as they're passing through. These items could easily be booby trapped, or it could simply be a trap to get you into a particular area so that the group can be ambushed at that point, using the gear, firearms, and supplies as the bait, and then springing the trap once we enter the area and attempt to gain these supplies. Another common trick is to use people, to have someone pretend as if they're injured or they need help in some way, and also to use people that pretend they may be unconscious or even dead laying in the pathway or roadway to gain the attention of a survivor. And beware, this may be a trap to draw the group into a small location or into what's called the kill zone of an ambush, and that's the location in which you would be surrounded by the enemy forces and ambushed suddenly, quickly, and probably efficiently. Once it becomes obvious that there's some type of obstacle such as this in the path or the road in front of us, then we want to immediately take cover and begin to assess the situation. We have to survey the surrounding area, especially rooftops and elevated positions, anywhere that a sniper could take an excellent position in, alleys, side streets, doorways, windows. Don't rush into any area until it's been proven clear. After observing from a distance, if they are unmoving and they don't seem to be breathing or anything like that, then this just may very well be a victim from an earlier attack. But if the individual is asking for help moving around or something to that effect, if we decide to help the individual, then try to make this individual move towards you. If the individual refuses to move towards you, then it's quite obvious that they're staying in that location for a specific reason. Now, of course, assuming their injuries don't prevent them from moving. But at this point, we just have to use our best judgment for this. Beware of the use of women and children. A common tactic is for someone who appears to be non-threatening, such as a woman or a child most likely, to act as if they need help. drawing your group into a specific area to be attacked or robbed, or worse. Do not approach their location, because most likely someone who's playing wounded will simply lay there and attempt to get you to approach them so that you walk into the kill zone. So if this is a situation you encounter, well, then this just becomes a judgment call at that point. And another tactic that can be used also is distraction. This might involve one of their own personnel making a noise or performing some type of action that would draw the group's attention, which will distract the group from the actual location of the enemy. And while distracted, this would allow the enemy to flank them and ambush the group. If any of these situations are encountered, if we are close enough to see these things, then the enemy already sees us. So take cover and examine the area. We don't have to be anywhere. There's no more appointments or time clocks to be punched. Take our time in evaluating the area, being prepared mentally and physically to wait out the enemy if necessary. Retreating from this situation would be a logical choice unless you're able to accurately determine the enemy's position and strength of their force. And this brings to light one of the major disadvantages about a small group, and that's the fact that with a small group you can't cover as much area, and you certainly can't fend off as much enemy fire as you could with a larger group. So avoiding these circumstances is most likely the best route for a small group. When traveling, remember the enemy isn't always in front of you. Sometimes an ambush will let you pass right by them just so they can box in the victims and ensure their own victory. First, there are two categories of ambush, and that's the far and near. I feel the most common type that we will encounter in SHTF will be the near ambush. And a near ambush is just as it sounds. Inside the two categories of ambush, there are formations. And the three most common formations are the ones we see here. Each formation has its own benefit in different situations. Recognizing these is the most important thing. To walk into an ambush will most likely lead to a large portion of my group being taken out, if not the entire group. So we have to be able to recognize the type of terrain, the type of features in the area that would make for an excellent ambush. We have to think as if we were going to ambush someone and anticipate those types of environments. Some examples of that: natural terrain features, such as woodland areas, narrow gaps, anywhere that you're brought through a funnel point. When you're passing through canyon type of areas where there are large embankments on either side of you. There are some areas that require special attention, or I hate to use the word hesitation, but hesitation to pass through. When you look at obstacles up ahead, bridges, underpasses, tunnels, crossroads, these are all excellent ambush positions for an enemy. When we want to avoid people, basically, or everyone to get to the location we're trying to get to, then combat in each one of these areas is not the way to do that, because it's going to draw attention to us as a group. So one of the options we do have is when we run up on situations like this: bridges, underpasses, tunnels, any type of environmental feature that poses a significant threat, areas in which our sight is obstructed, areas that we can't see the entire environment up ahead, then if there are areas we can't see, then these are areas that can be occupied easily by an enemy soldier or other. When traveling the terrain, whether it be through urban areas, down the highways, or through a forest or rural area, then if the group is 4 people or more, it's best to break off into smaller groups, with one group leading about 20 to 25 yards ahead of the second group. This will give you eyes to the front and eyes to the rear. We can take our time as we travel through any of these areas and make sure that we're aware of our surroundings and we have a good idea of what's going on. It's really easy to walk into an ambush or an attack of some type, especially when we encounter obstacles like the bridges, underpasses, tunnels, etc. These type of obstacles present unique problems that sometimes a small group is just not equipped to handle. Evasion may be the best choice for situations such as this, because these types of features are excellent for ambush positions, and these types of features can be very difficult to pass through if you are basically boxed in by being ambushed on both sides of the tunnel or the underpass or even on the bridge, because there's no cover on a bridge. So when you first spot these types of obstacles, then the group leading the two groups should signal to the rear group and bring them to a halt. Then both should take cover, regroup, and assess the situation. Recon what can be reconned safely by using binoculars or whatever other items you have in your possession or inventory. But if there is any doubt whatsoever about whether this could be or may not be a trap, then this type of feature should be avoided. It doesn't take long to get around these areas that may be troublesome, but sometimes it's better to be safe than sorry in these circumstances. When it comes to booby traps, these are only limited to your imagination. I have an in-depth video coming out, but during this research, I was researching the most common type and different types of traps in general. And the ones that we see here are the ones that popped up highest in the results for the searches that I did, which in turn means that they were the most viewed. So it's safe to assume that if most people saw these types of traps, and these would be the types of traps that we would most commonly see in this type of event or scenario. And when various types of booby traps are encountered, if you decide to disarm them or to try and cross over them, always be aware that one booby trap may lead directly into a next or the double trap. And when we encounter these booby traps, that means people are close by. And always beware if you're attempting to disarm a booby trap or to step over a trap or to bypass a trap in the close vicinity, that there could be a double trap setup or even triple traps. That is where one trap will lead to another that leads to another. And in some situations, booby traps may be set to draw your attention to that particular trap, just so that we will try to avoid it and go around a certain way, leading directly into a secondary trap. Next, let's look at some camouflage patterns here. Using camouflage will assist you in stealth activities and in basically any type of environment with the proper type of camouflage. Depending on what type of area you're in, the different camouflage patterns would be useful. So here we'll see some examples of camouflage patterns. Camo works great when attempting to remain undetected, but on the other hand, it stands out like a sore thumb in an urban or crowded area. Once again, a time and place for everything. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you found it informative. Thanks a lot for watching. And for now, Serious Survivor, out.